what I want, I don't want it. Do what I like, I don't like it. My life is a mess, screaming with boredom. I don't feel nothing when I'm buzzing. Someone adds some glamorous hurt. 'Cause when I sleep alone for insomnia, they say you have to be beaten up before you're tender enough. They say you have to bruise to feel. I don't taste it. Obsessing over dress when I split you.
What's up guys, Dan Furlani here and welcome back to a new video. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. If not, just hit the like button. Alright, back from my short vacation. That was fun. Now it's time to go back to work. I'm really not in the mood. Something new you probably already noticed. I mean, the ones who already know my channel and know me, that I got a haircut. How did it happen?
My fear go. I was brave enough to let you win. No matter the risk, you're worthy of my heartbeat.
It just happened. I love having long hair, but in the end, number one, it was really hot. And number two, I realized I always had my hair in a ponytail, so whatever, it'll grow back. What do I talk about today? Today, I just want to show you my settings when I shoot in real time with my Canon 90D. This.
Love me, you're gonna love me unconditional.
What are my settings when I shoot in real time to make videos with the Canon 90D? Well, that's simple. Let's see. Let's open the menu and let's figure it out. First thing, I shoot manual. The only automatic thing I have is the autofocus. That's it. First thing I do, I select the picture profile, or like they call it at Canon, picture style. So I go in the menu where there is the symbol of the camera, and I go to the third tab where it says picture style. I have it set to user-defined one. That's where I put my Cine style. You can download it and install it for free. It's a great profile. It's not like a C-Log, but close enough. I mean, that allows you to have quite a bit dynamic range. Not much, but it definitely helps when it comes to color grading. You have a little bit more flexibility. If you don't have Cine style and you don't want to download it, you can select the neutral profile. So you select whatever you have or whatever you want. Right. Then we go to movie rec quality, movie rec size. In this case, on the Canon 90D, we can shoot 4K, 24 frames per second without any additional crop. And that's awesome. So we select 4K, 24 frames per second, which is actually 23.98. Here we are, set. Then we press the shutter button. We are in live view mode. And here we have access directly to other options. For example, something we should adjust as soon as possible. One of the first things is the shutter speed. In order to get the best cinematic look or the most natural motion blur in the shot, the shutter speed should be double the frame rate. In this case, 24 frames per second. The shutter speed should be 48, but we don't have 48. We have 50. Close enough, right? So we set it to 50, 1/50th of a second actually. Then we have the ISO. The ISO is the additional light you may want to put in your footage. If there's not enough light, you can add it with the ISO. But I suggest you stick to the basic ISO for better results, better quality. So that's like the basic ISO for the Canon 90D is 100. So we keep it here, 100. Then aperture, the f-stop. The lower the number, the wider the aperture. So the more light enters in the sensor, and also the more we can get a shallow depth of field. So you want to set it, in this case, as low as possible. There are cases where you don't need to set the aperture very wide. When you shoot a landscape and you want like a lot in focus, and you need at least f8 or even f12 or more. So okay, So we put it to f2.8 if I'm using 24 millimeters. If I'm using a 50 millimeters, like the Nifty 50, the maximum aperture would be 1.8, and we set it right there. Okay, so we're all set. Well, if there is too much light, I mean, if the footage is overexposed, what can we do? If it was a photo, we could adjust the shutter speed to cut off some light and expose it properly, but we can't for video. Because if we want to keep a cinematic motion blur or a natural motion blur, we need to keep it at 1/50th of a second, like double the frame rate. Then how do we keep a wide aperture without touching the shutter speed? And when the ISO is already at the minimum, like 100, well, that's when we need ND filters. They're like sunglasses for your lens. So with an ND filter, you can reduce the amount of light passing through the lens and hitting the sensor. That enables you to keep the same aperture and get the most beautiful shallow depth of field, if that's something you're looking for, you're trying to achieve. With an ND filter, bam, problem solved. And I suggest you to use variable ND filters, because otherwise when you have like, for example, an ND8, an ND6, or an ND4, you don't know which one is the best suitable for the shot. So you would have to check if it cuts too much light, you have to put another one, or if the intensity is not enough, opposite problem, but still you have to take it off, try another one, and so on. With a variable ND filter, you just need one, and then you just rotate it and you adjust the intensity. Aperture f8, and to expose it correctly, f16 right now. Okay, this is f16, but we don't get a very shallow depth of field, so we lose some of the cinematic magic. Now let's see if we put an ND filter. f1.8 with the ND filter, variable ND filter, KNF concept from ND8 to ND128. That's a great option. And by the way, check the links in the description to see all my gear stuff and things, including filters, the filters I use. And check the link to Epidemic Sound if you want 1 month of great music and awesome sound effects to use in your videos, like for 1 month for free. We continue with the settings of the Canon 90D to shoot in real time in the most cinematic way. Then we need to see the focus. The first thing, the autofocus AF method. The first one is the tracking. Like if there's a face in the shot, like the subject, it tracks it. So that's the one I use most of the times. If the subject is not a human being, if it's a product or something else, I just use spot autofocus, the second one. But in this case, I guess we're gonna need most of the times the tracking, because it recognizes the face and it tracks. Great feature. So that's set. Then we continue. Stabilization. Right now set it to off. If you use your camera on a tripod or on a gimbal, I suggest you keep this off. If you shoot handheld and you want some stabilization, even if you're using a stabilized lens, that helps a lot. You can enable the digital stabilization of the camera. There is also another option, it's the enhanced, but already when you enable the electronic stabilization, the image is cropped a little bit. If you use the enhanced one, it's cropped quite a bit more. So I don't know, and I don't like the way it stabilizes the footage. It's like, I don't know, kind of weird. So if you use it on a tripod, you're not gonna need that, or if you use it on a gimbal, so just set it to off and you're good to go. If you shoot handheld, just enable the basic stabilization, not the enhanced. White balance. So for the white balance, many people use the automatic white balance. I don't like using it, because sometimes, for example, when you're shooting something, you're recording, and then you press stop, and then you record again in the same exact conditions. For some reasons, the white balance will be different in the two videos. I don't really like it. I suggest you either use, for example, daylight if you're shooting in daylight or in a studio with studio lights, set to daylight. But in this case, for example, like here, daylight, and you're good to go. Or you can adjust it with the temperature. When I don't use the daylight by default, I usually set the temperature between 46 and 4800 Kelvin. So I guess this is it. This is how I set my Canon 90D to shoot videos like the most cinematic way in real time.
Like I was falling through the air. No one but myself to hold my hand. Standing in the shadows of what we have been. Sleeping with your back facing me. I know this isn't us. Baby, pull me closer, let's fall in love. Oh, I can feel my body move to every move you make. And I can feel the tension every time we're close. I know whatever happens, I will have you next to me. 'Cause tonight we have it all. 'Cause we're dancing as one. 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 We've been into places all at once.
Of course, it helps if you have a fast lens with the aperture as wide as possible. In my case, I use either the 24mm f2.8, which is not really fast, but it's more versatile than the nifty 50, which I use for B-rolls a lot on the Canon 90D, like the Canon 50mm f1.8. Again, the nifty 50. And alright, I think I'm gonna go take a walk in the park, relax. I've been jogging earlier, so I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe if you ain't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.